Have you ever had the sense that your very existence unsettles others? Not because you were rude or said anything offensive, but simply because you showed up as your true self? No pretending, no smiling to fit in. In some spaces, you don't need to raise your voice to make others uneasy. Just not laughing when everyone else does, not nodding along to something you find absurd, or standing still when others expect you to bend. These quiet acts speak volumes.
People who walk a different path don't need to be loud to be heard. Their silence often carries more weight than a chorus of agreement. There's something about the person who doesn't conform that challenges the unspoken rules. As one thinker once said, the world turns hostile toward those who won't submit. We live among invisible systems, social codes, moral expectations, standards of behavior that don't tolerate questioning. If you challenge them, you're labeled difficult or arrogant. But is compliance truly a virtue? Or is it often just fear in disguise? Fear of being judged, isolated, or cast out. In reality, the world built on conformity sees freedom as a threat. Genuine freedom, the kind that begins deep within as a refusal to fake, disrupts the norm. When someone dares to be honest with themselves, they reveal a truth many try to conceal: that most people are living according to someone else's script. The one who resists isn't trying to offend, but their presence reveals the passivity in others, the need for validation, the fear of disapproval, the desperation to belong. The truly free person makes others uncomfortable precisely because they don't need to be seen to feel real. There's a quiet violence in the demand for obedience. It's not chains or bars. It's a constant pressure to be smaller, quieter, more agreeable. Those who step outside that mold act as mirrors, showing others what they've sacrificed. Courage, clarity, authenticity. Most would rather remain comfortable in their cage than face the weight of thinking independently. So if you've ever felt out of place just by being yourself, you're not alone. You're simply unbound in a world conditioned to kneel. One philosopher saw this clearly. He believed traditional morality wasn't born from strength, but from bitterness. What we call virtue, humility, obedience, submission, was, in his view, a survival tactic of the powerless, a way to turn weakness into a moral weapon. He argued that when the weak couldn't defeat the strong, they redefined strength as cruelty and labeled their own weakness as goodness. That's how obedience came to be seen as moral. This mindset, what he called slave morality, wasn't a celebration of virtue, but a rejection of power. Resignation was praised. Defiance was condemned. Autonomy became selfishness. Courage was seen as arrogance. Over time, we were trained to believe obedience equals goodness. But goodness for whom? In this context, morality is less about guiding people and more about taming them. Praise goes to those who follow without question, not those who dare to think. The more someone fits the mold, the more they're admired. But challenge the rules? Suddenly you're a problem. This philosopher invited us to question deeper. Are you good or just well-behaved? Obedience didn't win through violence. It wore the mask of peace, wisdom, and ethics. But beneath that mask often lies fear. Fear dressed up as virtue. Fear parading as spiritual maturity. To obey without thinking is easier. To question is dangerous. When someone challenges the foundations of morality, they don't just stir philosophical debate. They disrupt the psychological safety net of the masses. Being truly free isn't just breaking laws or customs. It's daring to examine the roots of your beliefs and asking, do I really believe this? Or was I just trained to? That same philosopher didn't write to comfort. He wrote to shake people awake. One of his most haunting images was of the last man. A person who isn't wicked or violent, just tired. This man avoids risk, discomfort, and depth. He chases comfort, routine, and acceptance. He doesn't want to evolve just to be safe, familiar, and liked. This last man is the end result of herd thinking. He distrusts anything that challenges him. He prefers stability to freedom. He swaps truth for comfort and relies on society to tell him who he is. Freedom terrifies him because it demands responsibility, because without rules, he would have to face himself. To the philosopher, the last man wasn't a villain, but a tragedy. A hollow figure who gave up the wildness of life for the certainty of routine. And here's where the real challenge arises. When someone steps out of this numb pattern, they don't just break the rules, they disturb the emotional peace of the collective. A free thinker isn't dangerous because of what they do, but because of what they show, that there is another way to live. Their presence forces others to wonder, am I hiding from myself? And most people don't want that answer. That's why the authentic are often shunned, not because they're wrong, but because they break the illusion. They're not rebels out of rebellion, but reminders that living on autopilot is not living at all. The crowd doesn't hate them maliciously, it fears them protectively. The herd must defend its boundaries against possibility. The paradox is this: the closer someone gets to inner liberation, the more threatening they become to those still trapped. Their existence becomes proof that the cage is optional. And nothing upsets the obedient more than watching someone walk freely without needing permission. Obedience holds society together, keeps systems orderly, predictable, efficient. But that same order can also strangle the human spirit. From childhood, we're rewarded for compliance, punished for questioning. School, rather than awakening minds, often becomes a workshop of conformity. The philosopher criticized all systems that promoted obedience at the cost of thought. He didn't trust religious dogma, political loyalty, or moral lectures that couldn't handle dissent. Whether it was a sermon, a campaign speech, or a classroom lecture, he saw the same message. Don't think, just follow. For centuries, religion preached that salvation comes through submission. Doubt was sinful, humility became self-erasure. Politics promised freedom but demanded loyalty. All these institutions, he believed, aimed to control, to dull the individual, to neutralize their potential to disrupt. The free spirit, then, is a threat from the start. Not because they fight the system, but because they don't need it to live. They carry a spark, even in silence, that makes the status quo tremble. They ask the questions no one wants to hear. They walk paths that haven't been paved. Obedience is taught through 1,000 little moments. The curious child is scolded. The compliant one is praised. Over time, we learn to silence ourselves, to suppress instincts, to reshape our thoughts into acceptable forms. It's not education, it's conditioning, a slow molding of humans into roles. But the one who resists this shaping, who stays true to something raw and internal, becomes a symbol of danger. Not because they threaten people physically, but because they unsettle the calm of unexamined lives. They reveal that what we call normal might just be practiced submission. Society doesn't need jails to punish disobedience. It uses more subtle tools: exclusion, ridicule, quiet dismissal. The rebel isn't beaten, they're ignored. Their ideas are laughed at. Their presence is tolerated, but never embraced. This emotional exile leaves no scars, but it hollows the soul. And yet, from this place of quiet isolation, a deeper freedom is born. The one who survives being misunderstood, silenced, and excluded becomes unshakable. They no longer need permission to exist. They walk alone, not out of bitterness, but out of integrity. They carry themselves with the quiet strength of someone who refuses to fake. Their silence speaks volumes. They don't seek conflict, but their mere presence disturbs the artificial calm. Because by simply being real, they remind others that they too could choose to live fully. That's when a new figure begins to emerge, the one who has stepped beyond the need to please. Not a hero in the traditional sense, but someone who lives from within. They've abandoned the morality of submission. They don't follow blindly, not out of pride, but because nothing outside them deserves blind loyalty anymore. They've become the source of their own direction. They don't aim to fit into someone else's mold. They aim to create, to forge new paths, new meanings, new ways of being human. Their journey is lonely, not because they hate others, but because few have the courage to walk beside them.